The morning mist clung to the ancient trees of the Amazon rainforest like a soft blanket. High above the forest floor, birds called out their morning songs while monkeys swung from branch to branch. Deep within this green world, hidden from modern civilization, the village of the forest people stirred to life as the sun began to rise. Old Stone sat outside his wooden hut, his weathered hands working on a new spear. Though his hair had turned white as river foam and lines marked his face like tree bark, his eyes remained sharp as a hawk's. He had led the tribe for 30 summers, keeping their ways pure and their people safe from the outside world. The village was small but strong, with about 200 people living in harmony with the forest. Their huts, made from wood and leaves, formed a circle around the central gathering place. Smoke rose from morning fires as women prepared breakfast, and children chased each other between the huts, their laughter mixing with the forest sounds. Swift, one of the tribe's best hunters, walked toward Old Stone. He was young but respected, known for his quiet feet and sure aim with a bow. "The hunting party is ready," he said, bowing his head slightly to the elder. "We go to the riverlands today." Old Stone nodded, studying the sky, as he always did before giving his blessing to the hunters. But something made him pause. There in the morning light, he saw something strange, a faint trail of silver, like a star that had lost its way in the daylight. "Take care today," Old Stone said, his voice carrying the weight of wisdom. "The spirits speak of change in the wind." Swift nodded, though he didn't fully understand. He gathered his hunting party, 5 strong men and women who had proven themselves in the forest's tests. They moved like shadows through the undergrowth, their feet finding safe paths through the dense vegetation. As the day grew older, the hunters noticed something unusual. The forest was too quiet. No bird songs filled the air, and even the monkeys had fallen silent. Swift held up his hand, signaling his group to stop. A strange humming sound filled the air, like 1,000 angry bees. Then they saw it, a flash of light through the trees, brighter than anything they had ever seen. The light grew stronger each moment, and the humming became louder until the very ground seemed to shake. Swift led his group to higher ground, climbing a small hill that overlooked a natural clearing. What they saw there would change their world forever. A massive object, smooth and shining like water in moonlight, descended from the sky. It was bigger than 10 of their largest huts put together, and it gave off a light that hurt their eyes. The object had no wings like a bird, yet it flew. It had no legs like an animal, yet it landed gently in the clearing. The hunters watched, their hearts beating fast, but their bodies staying still as stones. This was not something their stories had prepared them for. This was not a forest spirit or an angry god. This was something else entirely. "We must tell Old Stone," Swift whispered, his voice barely louder than a breath. But before they could move, more lights appeared in the sky. 1, then 3, then many more, until the morning sky looked like the night sky filled with moving stars. The forest fell completely silent now, as if every living thing held its breath. Even the wind seemed to stop, leaving only the strange humming sound that came from the shining object. As Swift and his hunters carefully backed away from their hiding spot, a part of the object opened like a flower blooming. Light poured out from inside, and shapes began to move within that light. Shapes that walked on 2 legs, but were not human. Swift felt fear in his heart, but also something else. Determination. Whatever these things were, they had entered the forest without permission. They had disturbed the natural order. And somehow, he knew that his people's simple way of life was about to face its greatest test. The hunters moved silently back toward the village, carrying with them news that would change everything. Behind them, more objects continued to descend from the sky, their lights turning the forest into day, their strange sounds drowning out the natural music of their world. The first contact had begun. Inside the largest ship, First Observer stood before the glowing control panels, his tall, thin form casting long shadows in the blue light. His skin shimmered like polished metal, and his 4 eyes blinked in different patterns as he studied the data screens before him. 15 ships successfully landed, he reported to the ship's data core. The local life forms show no signs of advanced technology. Perfect specimens for the Great Collection. The Watchers had visited thousands of worlds across the stars. They believed it was their duty to study and collect samples of primitive species. Their own civilization was so old that they have forgotten what it meant to be young. To learn, to grow. Second observer, smaller but just as shiny, moved to join his leader. "The air is breathable," he said, his voice like whispers in metal tubes. "But the humidity will make our protective suits uncomfortable. These primitives somehow survive in this wet heat." Through their ship's windows, they watched the forest with all their scanning equipment running. The tribe's village lay hidden under the thick trees, but the Watchers' technology could see through the leaves easily. They watched the humans moving about their daily tasks, studying them like insects in a glass case. "Look how they waste time building things by hand," First Observer said, his voice full of pride and dismissal. "No machines, no power sources, not even basic field generators. They are barely more than clever animals." The Watchers set up their base camp quickly and efficiently. Floating lights rose into the air, creating an invisible barrier around their ships. Guard drones, small like birds but made of shining metal, flew out to patrol the forest edges. The aliens were careful and thorough, but their confidence made them blind to many things. They did not notice how the forest people watched them back. They did not see how Swift and other hunters moved silently through the trees, learning the patterns of the strange flying lights. They did not understand that the primitives were studying them just as carefully. First Observer called a meeting in the main ship. "Our mission is simple," he told his crew. "We will observe these creatures for 3 rotations of their planet, then collect 10 specimens for the Great Collection. They will be perfect examples of pre-intelligent life for our museums." The aliens set up their equipment with great care. They placed sensors in the trees, set up invisible watching posts, and began recording everything they saw. But they made one very big mistake. They thought simple tools meant simple minds. In their camp, the Watchers lived in comfort. Their ships could make any food they wanted, clean any air, and protect them from any danger. They had forgotten what it meant to live as part of nature rather than apart from it. They looked at the tribe's wooden spears and thought them worthless compared to their energy weapons. These creatures used pointed sticks for hunting, Second Observer noted in his reports. They have no understanding of proper weapons. They will be easy to collect when the time comes. But as the aliens worked, strange things began to happen. Some of their sensors stopped working for no clear reason. Guard drones reported odd movements in the trees that didn't show up on scans. The forest itself seemed to fight against their equipment. "Just local wildlife," First Observer said, dismissing the reports. "Nothing that could harm our superior technology." As night fell on their second day, the Watchers' camp glowed with artificial light that pushed back the darkness. They felt safe behind their invisible walls and floating guards. They trusted in their machines and their advanced minds. But in the darkness beyond their lights, eyes watched. Human eyes, filled not with fear, but with determination and growing understanding. The tribe had survived in this forest for countless generations. They had learned its secrets, its dangers, and its gifts. Now they would use all of that knowledge in ways the Watchers could never expect. The observers had come to study what they thought were simple savages. They would soon learn just how wrong they were. The morning sun had barely touched the treetops when Swift led his hunting party out again. This time, they carried not just their usual spears and bows, but also special bundles of herbs that Root, the medicine woman, had prepared. The herbs gave off a strong smell that even the strange flying machines seemed to avoid. 5 hunters moved like shadows through the undergrowth. Swift had chosen his best people. Strong Arm with her perfect aim, Quick River who could climb any tree, Wild Dog who could move without sound, and Night Eyes who could see danger before anyone else. They had all grown up in the forest, and today they would use every skill they had learned. They came upon the alien scouts in a small clearing. 3 tall, shiny figures moved stiffly through the forest, waving strange sticks that glowed at the ends. The aliens' bodies looked like water in the sunlight, and they walked as if they found the forest floor uncomfortable. Swift raised his hand, signaling his hunters to stay still. They watched as the aliens pointed their glowing sticks at plants and animals, making strange humming sounds. A small beam of light would shoot out, and whatever they pointed at would float up into the air, trapped in a bubble of light. They catch things without touching them, Wild Dog whispered, his voice barely a breath. Like spider webs made of light. Swift noticed something important. Before each captured, the alien devices made a specific sound, and the light bubbles always formed in the same way. There was a pattern to their magic, and patterns could be understood. The hunters stayed perfectly still as one alien came closer to their hiding spot. The creature was taller than any man, but it moved uncertainly on the uneven ground. Its feet kept slipping on leaves, and it had to use its free hand to push branches away. Suddenly, a colorful bird flew past the alien's head. The creature turned quickly, losing its balance on the wet leaves. As it stumbled, Swift saw something that made his eyes narrow. Under their shiny skin, the aliens were weak. They had thin limbs and moved as if the forest's very air was too heavy for them. But then everything happened at once. Night Eyes shifted position, and a twig snapped under his foot. The alien spun around, its stick glowing brightly. Swift knew they had only moments to act. "Scatter!" he shouted, and his hunters burst from their hiding places in different directions. The alien's light beam shot out, trying to catch them in its floating trap, but the hunters were ready. They rolled, jumped, and dove in ways they had seen animals escape from snares. Strong Arm, who had climbed into a tree, let loose an arrow. It struck the alien's stick weapon, knocking it aside. The creature made a high-pitched sound that hurt their ears, a cry of surprise or fear. The other 2 aliens came running, their own weapons ready, but the forest people were already moving, using every trick they knew. Quick River led one alien into a patch of sticky vines. Wild Dog threw a bundle of roots herbs at another, making its eyes blink rapidly in confusion. Swift saw his chance. While the aliens were distracted, he ran forward with his spear. He didn't aim to kill. Old Stone had taught him that unknown things should first be understood. Instead, he struck the alien's leg covering, carrying the shiny skin. The alien screamed. Under the torn covering, its real skin was pale and soft. More importantly, a few drops of blue liquid, blood or something else, dripped onto the forest floor. The aliens could be hurt. "Back to the village," Swift called out. His hunters melted into the forest as quickly as they had appeared. Behind them, they heard the aliens making loud, angry sounds and calling into their small, shining boxes. As they ran, Swift's mind was already working. The aliens were powerful but clumsy. Their weapons were strong but worked in predictable ways. Their bodies were weak under their shiny skins. Every piece of knowledge was a weapon, just as Old Stone always said. The first battle was over. The real war was about to begin. That night, the tribe gathered in their central meeting place. The fire cast dancing shadows on worried faces as Old Stone listened to Swift's report about the encounter with the aliens. The tribal leader sat quietly, his ancient eyes reflecting the flames as he thought deeply about everything he heard. "When I was a boy," Old Stone finally spoke, his voice carrying to every corner of the gathering. "My grandfather told me stories about forest spirits. He said some looked like shining water and could catch birds with invisible hands. He picked up a stick and drew in the dirt. The stories weren't about spirits at all. They were about these sky people. Our ancestors must have met them before." Root, the medicine woman, stepped forward. Her arms were full of plants and her face was excited. "The herbs that confuse their eyes," she said. "I found something strange. When I dried these leaves near the broken piece of their magic stick that strong arm brought back, the metal turned dark and stopped glowing. This news caused much whispered talk among the tribe. Old Stone asked Root to show everyone what she had discovered. She placed the alien device piece on a flat stone and burned the special herbs around it. As the smoke touched the metal, it changed color and lost its shine. "Their magic is strong," Old Stone said, "but it has weaknesses. Just like the great snake is powerful, but can't strike what it cannot see, these sky people have their own blind spots." Swift spoke next, describing how the aliens moved clumsily through the forest. "They're like fish trying to climb trees," he said, making some children giggle despite the serious situation. "Their bodies are weak under their shiny skins, and they don't know how to walk on our paths." Old Stone nodded slowly. "They trust their magic tools too much," he said. "They have forgotten how to use their eyes and ears. They have forgotten the wisdom of the forest." He stood up, his old bones cracking, but his voice was strong. "We will teach them to remember." For the next several hours, the tribe shared everything they had learned about the Sky People. Night Eyes told how the alien lights moved in patterns, like ants following a trail. Quick River described how their floating bubbles couldn't catch anything that moved in a zigzag pattern, like a snake escaping danger. Root brought out more plants and showed how different herbs affected the alien tools. Some made their lights grow dim, while others confused their seeing sticks. She had been testing everything in her medicine collection against the broken piece of alien metal. "The forest protects its children," she said, mixing new combinations of herbs. "It has given us everything we need to fight these Sky People. We just have to listen to its teachings." As the night grew deeper, the tribe began making plans. The younger hunters practiced moving like snakes to avoid the light bubbles. The gatherers collected more of the special herbs that Root had discovered. The toolmakers studied the broken alien device, learning its secrets. Old Stone watched it all with pride. His people were doing what they had always done best: learning, adapting, surviving. They took what they knew about the forest, about its plants and animals and spirits, and found new ways to use this ancient knowledge. "We may not have magic sticks that catch birds," he told a group of worried children, "but we have something better. We have the wisdom of all our ancestors and the strength of the forest itself." Outside their village, the aliens' lights still glowed in the darkness. Their machines still hummed and their guards still watched. But now, the tribe was watching back. With every passing hour, they learned more. With every new discovery, they grew stronger. The Sky People thought they had found simple savages. Instead, they had awakened a force as old and powerful as the forest itself. Human wisdom passed down through countless generations, ready to meet any challenge, even one that came from the stars. Dawn had not yet broken when the tribe's warriors began their first real attack against the Sky People. Swift led 20 hunters, their bodies painted with mud and crushed leaves to blend with the forest. Each carried a bundle of Root's special herbs and weapons coated with mixtures she had created. "Remember," Swift whispered to his group, "move like the snake, strike like the jaguar, vanish like the mist." The hunters nodded, their eyes bright with determination in the pre-dawn darkness. They had spent days watching the aliens' patterns. The Sky People's guard lights moved the same way every morning, following fixed paths like bees flying to flowers. Their walking guards changed positions when the sun touched certain trees. Everything they did was as regular as the sunrise. The tribe used this knowledge now. Quick River and 3 others moved to the east side of the alien camp, where the morning light would blind the guards' seeing devices. Night Eyes led another group to the south, where they had discovered a gap in the floating lights' paths. Swift waited until the forest birds began their morning songs. This was when the aliens changed their guards, a time they thought nothing would dare attack. He raised his hand, then dropped it. The attack began with smoke. Hunters lit bundles of Root's herbs, letting the wind carry the special smoke toward the alien camp. The effect was immediate. The floating guard lights started flickering. their paths becoming confused. Through the smoke, they could hear the aliens making their high-pitched alarm sounds. But this was just the beginning. As the aliens rushed to check their failing devices, Wild Dog's group sprang their traps. They had spent days building them, hiding them under leaves and dirt, simple traps made of vines and wooden springs, but placed exactly where the aliens always walked. 3 of the Sky People fell into hidden pits. 2 more got tangled in vines that sprang up around their legs. Their shiny skin coverings tore easily, just as Swift had learned in their first meeting. The aliens tried to use their light bubble weapons, but the hunters were ready. They moved in zigzag patterns, just like escaping snakes. The light bubbles caught only empty air and falling leaves. Strong Arm and her archers had moved into the trees. Their arrows weren't aimed to kill, but to damage the aliens' tools and tear their protective coverings. Each archer had practiced for days, learning exactly where to hit the alien devices to make them stop working. In the confusion, Swift led his main group straight through the gap in the aliens' defenses. They carried special gourds filled with mixtures Root had prepared. These they threw at the aliens' bigger machines, watching as the liquids made the metal turn dark and stop humming. First Observer's voice boomed out from one of the ships, speaking in strange sounds that hurt their ears. But the tribe didn't stop. They had planned this attack carefully, and each group knew exactly what to do. Some hunters spread more of Root's herbs around the aliens' biggest machines. Others used long poles to knock down the floating lights. Still others led confused aliens into more traps, always staying just out of reach of their weapons. The attack lasted less than an hour. When Swift gave the signal, the hunters melted back into the forest as quickly as they had appeared. They left behind broken machines, torn alien coverings, and very confused Sky People. First Observer stood in the doorway of his ship, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly as he surveyed the damage. The simple savages had destroyed 3 sensor arrays, disabled 12 Guardian drones, and damaged the outer skin of 2 ships. Most importantly, they had shown they could get past the aliens' best defenses. Back in the safety of the forest, Swift gathered his hunters. No one had been caught. No one had been hurt. They had struck the first real blow against the Sky People, and they had done it using nothing but the forest's gifts and their own wisdom. They will be angry now, Swift told his people. They will try to find us, but we have shown them something important. We are not their prey. We are their hunters. First Observer stood in his command room, all 4 of his eyes glowing with anger. The human primitives had damaged 3 more ships during the night. His crew was tired and afraid, jumping at every forest sound. It was time to end this game. Prepare the fleet's weapons, he ordered. We will burn away their hiding places. Second Observer tried to protest, saying this wasn't what they came for, but First Observer had stopped listening to warnings. But Old Stone was ready for this moment. He had seen the anger growing in the Sky People's actions, had watched their movements become more desperate. During the last tribal meeting, he had told everyone his plan. When hunters chase a monkey through the trees, he had said, "The monkey doesn't fight. It leads them deeper and deeper into the forest, until the hunters are lost." His old eyes had twinkled. We will be the monkey. Now, as the alien ships rose into the air with their weapons glowing, the tribe was already moving. They had practiced this evacuation many times. Each person knew exactly what to take and where to go. Swift and his hunters spread out through the forest, leaving obvious trails for the aliens to follow. They broke branches, left footprints, and even tied bright feathers to trees. But these trails didn't lead to the tribe's real hiding place. They led to the deepest, most dangerous parts of the forest. The aliens fell for the trap. Their ships followed the false trails, firing burning light beams that turned trees to ash. But the forest itself seemed to fight back. Thick clouds gathered above, drawn by the heat of the aliens' weapons. Soon, heavy rain poured down. The rain caused the aliens more problems than they expected. Their burning beams fizzled in the downpour. Their floating sensors couldn't see through the curtains of water. Even their ships struggled to fly in the storm. But the tribe knew exactly what the rain would do. They had led the aliens to a part of the forest that flooded during heavy rains. As the water rose, it carried logs and branches with it. These crashed into the low-flying ships, scratching their shiny surfaces. Two alien ships tried to land on what looked like solid ground, but was actually a deep mud pool covered with leaves. The ships sank partway before their engines screamed, trying to pull free. The more they struggled, the deeper they sank. Another ship followed a trail into a narrow valley. The tribe had spent days weakening the roots of the big trees there. When the ship's weapons hit these trees, they fell like a row of spears. One huge trunk crashed across the ship's front, cracking its glowing eyes. High above, First Observer watched in disbelief as his fleet struggled against mere trees and rain. His sensors couldn't find the humans anywhere. Instead, his ships were being damaged by the very forest itself. "These are just plants and mud," he screamed into his communication device. "How can they defeat our technology?" But the forest wasn't done yet. Lightning flashed across the sky, drawn to the metal ships like moths to flame. One bolt hit a ship's power source, making it spark and spin before it had to land. Another ship got lost in the storm and crashed into a cliff hidden by rain and fog. The tribe watched all this from safe caves they had prepared. These caves were high enough to avoid the floods, but hidden well enough that the aliens' devices couldn't spot them. Root burnt special herbs at the cave entrances, making sure no sensors could pierce the smoke. Old Stone sat at the cave mouth, watching the aliens' mighty ships run from lightning and rain. "The forest tests all its children," he told the worried little ones huddled nearby. "Those who fight against it will always lose. Those who learn from it will always survive." By the time the storm ended, the aliens had lost 5 ships to the forest's traps. Their mighty fleet had been broken not by weapons, but by rain, mud, trees, and the wisdom of those they had called primitives. The storm had passed, leaving behind a changed forest. Broken alien ships lay half-buried in mud. The morning sun showed deep scars in the earth where their weapons had struck. But the forest was already healing, new leaves turning toward the light. Old Stone gathered the tribe for their final battle. "The Sky People are weak now," he said, his voice strong and clear. "Their pride is broken, but they are still dangerous. Like a wounded jaguar, they will fight hardest when they are most afraid." Swift had spent the night planning with the other hunters. They had watched the aliens gather their remaining ships in a tight circle, putting their strongest defenses around what was left of their fleet. But the tribe had expected this too. Root stepped forward, carrying bundles of every herb and mixture that had worked against the aliens. "We have enough for one last attack," she said. "The forest has given us all we need." The tribe's fighters gathered in the pre-dawn darkness. Every person had a role to play, even the children who would make noise far from the real attack to confuse the alien sensors. They had learned that the Sky People depended too much on their machines to tell them what was real. First Observer paced in his damaged ship, his shiny skin now scratched and dull. "They are just primitives," he kept saying. "They have no technology, no real weapons. We cannot be defeated by stick-wielding savages." But he was wrong. As the sun rose, the tribe launched their final attack. It began with sounds. Children beating drums and blowing horns from all directions. The alien sensors lit up everywhere, trying to track threats that weren't there. Then came the smoke. Hundreds of small fires burned Root's herbs, filling the air with mist that made the aliens' seeing devices useless. Their floating lights crashed into each other, confused by the herb's strange effects. Swift led the main attack himself. His hunters had covered themselves in mud that blocked the aliens' body sensing machines. They ran in zigzag patterns that their weapons couldn't track. Each hunter carried a gourd of Root's strongest mixture, the one that could turn alien metal dark and dead. The aliens tried to fight back, but they were afraid now. Their weapons shook in their hands. They jumped at shadows and shot at empty air. Everything they had believed about their own power had been proven wrong. Strong Arm and her archers struck from the trees, their arrows finding every weak spot they had discovered in the aliens' protective skins. Wild Dog led another group that threw vines over the ship's glowing eyes, blinding them like they would blind a caught animal. First Observer ran to his ship's main room, trying to call for help from his home world. But Swift was ready for this. He threw his gourd of roots mixture right into the ship's speaking machine. The metal sizzled and went dark. "Your magic is strong," Swift said to the alien leader, standing in the doorway of the ship. "But you never learned the forest's magic. You never took time to listen, to learn, to understand." First Observer looked at the human with all four eyes. For the first time, he saw not a primitive savage, but a wise and dangerous opponent. Without a word, he pressed buttons that made his ship's doors close. Around the clearing, other ships did the same. The remaining alien ships rose slowly into the sky. Their once shiny surfaces were now scratched, stained, and dark. As they flew up past the trees, past the clouds, and back toward the stars, they left behind broken machines and damaged tools. Old Stone watched them go. "They will tell stories about us," he said to the gathered tribe. "Stories about the primitives who defeated their mighty ships. But they will never understand that our strength comes from knowing we are part of the forest, not its masters." The tribe celebrated their victory that night, but they also got to work. They buried the dangerous alien machines deep in the earth. Old Stone began teaching the children new stories, stories about the sky people and how the forest's wisdom had defeated their powerful magic. "Remember," he told them, "it is not the weapon that makes the warrior strong. It is not the tool that makes the builder wise. It is the knowledge passed down from our ancestors and the wisdom to use it well." And so the tribe returned to their simple life in the forest. But they were changed. They kept watch on the stars at night, ready to defend their home again. They had proven that the oldest wisdom could defeat the newest magic. They had shown that those who lived simply were not simple at all.